The execution sentence comes as retribution for the shooting deaths of 4 family members.
I loved Grandma White, Karen, Emily, and Lauren very much, and will miss them until the end of my days.
From loving father to cold-blooded killer in just 365 days. How is such a drastic transformation possible? Tonight, we challenge you to spot the warning signs as we retrace James Kraig Kahler's year-long descent into murder. Could you have seen it coming? As we unravel the Kahler family's story, we'll highlight the red flags that friends, family, and colleagues missed. By the end of this video, you'll never look at a normal family the same way again. A perfect family unravels. Picture this, the Kahlers, living in Weatherford, Texas. Your typical American family, right? James Kraig Kahler's the big shot, director of public utilities. Karen's keeping fit as a personal trainer at the local gym. They've got 2 teenage daughters, Emily and Lauren, doing great in school and all that. Plus a young son, Sean. Everything looks peachy on the surface. Then boom, James gets this killer job offer in Missouri. Director of Water and Light in Columbia, highest paid employee in the city. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? But here's where things start going sideways. Karen's feeling trapped, you know? She's at the gym, working as a fitness instructor, and she meets this woman, Sunny Reese. They start talking, getting close. Real close, if you catch my drift. Next thing you know, Karen's telling James about her new friend. Now get this, James is cool with it at first. He's like, yeah, okay, explore that. But then he flips the script, gets all jealous and controlling. That's when the cracks start showing. So they pack up and move to Missouri in June 2008. Thinking maybe a fresh start will fix things. But nope, it just makes everything worse. Karen and Sunny are getting closer, James is losing it. He's demanding to see receipts for everything Karen buys, getting all forceful. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know what's coming, but you can't look away. By early 2009, Karen's had enough. She's filing for divorce. James? He's spiraling, losing control, obsessing over Karen and Sunny. His work's suffering big time. September rolls around and bam, he loses his job. His whole world's falling apart, and that's when you really start to see James losing it. The depression, the obsession, it's all piling up. He's stalking Karen, spying on her, even showing up at work with family albums, leaving without warning to check up on her. His boss can't take it anymore, asks him to resign. So now James has lost everything. His job, his family, his whole identity. And all that anger, that jealousy, that loss of control, it's building up to something big, something bad, real bad. The pressure cooker explodes. All right, so now we're in 2009, and things are really heating up. Kraig's behavior? It's getting more and more erratic. He's not just obsessing over Karen anymore. No, he's taking it to a whole new level. You know how some people get a little jealous when their partner talks to someone else? Well, Kraig's gone way beyond that. He's stalking Karen, following her around, spying on her every move. And get this, he's even sneaking into the house to set up cameras. Can you believe that? I mean, talk about invasion of privacy. It's like he's lost all sense of boundaries. But here's where it gets really wild. Kraig's so obsessed, he can't even focus on his job anymore. He's showing up to work with family albums, flipping through them over and over again, showing his coworkers. And then, out of nowhere, he's leaving work without warning to check up on Karen. It's not looking good, you know? His boss, he's had enough. In September 2009, he asks Kraig to resign. Just like that, Kraig's lost everything. His job, his family, his whole identity, it's all gone. And you can see it's tearing him apart. Now we're getting to Thanksgiving 2009. Karen and the kids, they're staying with her grandmother Dorothy. Kraig? He's living with his parents. It's like the whole family's been torn apart. Then comes November 28, 2009. That's when Kraig finally snaps. He shows up at Dorothy's house with a rifle, and all hell breaks loose. When the dust settles, Karen, Emily, Lauren, and Dorothy, they're all dead. Sean, the youngest? He's the only one who made it out alive. You want to know how bad it was? Sean, he's just 10 years old, and he sees the whole thing. He's cleaning coins with his mom when his dad bursts in and starts shooting. Sean hears his mom collapse, and he just runs. He makes it to a neighbor's house, telling them to call 911. Can you imagine? A kid that young, having to deal with something like that? And Dorothy? She was still alive when the cops got there, but barely. She manages to tell them it was Kraig who did it before she dies 3 days later. It's like the final piece of evidence, you know? Sealing Kraig's fate. The aftermath and trial. All right, so Kraig's on the run, but not for long. They catch him the next day, just wandering around looking all confused. It's like he's in a daze or something. When the deputy approaches him, Kraig just comes right out with it. He says, "I'm the guy you're looking for." It's like he knows it's all over, you know? Now get this. When they arrest him, Kraig tells the deputy he's got a gun and some knives on him. Plus, he's carrying all this cash, gloves, a flashlight, and a hunting bag. It's like he was prepared for something, but then just gave up. So we're in the courtroom now, and Kraig's lawyers are trying to say he was insane. They're talking about how he had this mental breakdown because of Karen's affair and losing his family. They're going on about depression and all these personality disorders. But the prosecution, they're not buying it one bit. The prosecution brings in their own expert, and this guy says, yeah, Kraig was depressed, but he knew exactly what he was doing. He planned those murders. It wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment thing. Kraig knew what he was doing the whole time. And then, man, this is heavy. They bring in Sean, Kraig's son, to testify. Can you imagine how hard that must have been for that kid? He's up there telling the court how he saw his dad shoot his mom right there in the kitchen. It's heartbreaking stuff, you know? The jury, they listen to all this for hours and hours. Then they go off to decide. It only takes them about 2 hours to come back with a verdict. Guilty. Guilty on all counts. Capital murder, 4 counts of first-degree murder, the whole 9 yards. But it's not over yet. Now they gotta decide if Kraig gets the death penalty. They hear these victim impact statements, and Sean, he says something that'll break your heart. He tells them he doesn't want his dad to get the death penalty because it would be hard on his grandparents. The kid says, "I do not want my whole family gone." Can you believe that? After everything that happened, he's still thinking about his family. In the end, though, the jury recommends the death penalty. It only takes them about 55 minutes to decide. They say the crimes were just too horrible. The victims suffered too much. Kraig's lawyer tries to argue that he was under extreme stress, that his mental illness made him do it. But the prosecution, they point out how Kraig chose not to hurt Sean during the attack. They say that shows he knew exactly what he was doing. So that's it. Kraig's found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death. From family man to death row in just 1 year. It's a crazy, tragic story, man. Makes you wonder what was really going on in that family all those years, you know? The legal battle continues. All right, so Kraig's on death row, but the story's far from over. He's still fighting, and his lawyers are throwing everything they've got at this case. They're saying Kansas's insanity defense law isn't fair. You see, back in 1995, Kansas changed their law. They took away the old insanity defense where you could say, hey, my client didn't know right from wrong. Now, all they can argue is that Kraig's mental illness stopped him from planning the murders. Kraig's lawyers, they're not happy with this. They think it's not right, not fair. So they take this case all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Can you believe that? The highest court in the land, looking at Kraig's case. But in 2020, the Supreme Court says, nope, Kansas's law is okay. They're basically saying states can decide how they want to handle insanity defenses. Now, there was this one judge, Justice Breyer, who didn't agree. He said taking away the right from wrong part of the insanity defense isn't fair. But he was outnumbered, so Kraig's conviction stands. But Kraig's not giving up. In 2023, he files another appeal. This time he's saying there was some funny business with the jury during his trial. He's claiming 2 jurors were talking about the case before they were supposed to. That's a big no-no in trials. And get this, he's saying one of the jurors even knew the victims. If that's true, it could be a real problem. Kraig's not just stopping there. He's also saying his lawyers didn't do a good job. He thinks they messed up when they were picking the jury. And he's saying they should have tried harder to move the trial somewhere else. You know, where people hadn't heard so much about the case. So now, we're all waiting to see what happens with this new appeal. It could be Kraig's last shot at avoiding execution. The thing is, in Kansas, they take these post-conviction appeals pretty seriously. If Kraig can prove his lawyers messed up or that there really was juror misconduct, he might get a new trial. Or they might even throw out his sentence. It's crazy to think about, right? This case has been going on for years, and it's still not over. It just goes to show how complicated the legal system can be, especially when you're dealing with something as serious as the death penalty. So there you have it, the story of James Kraig Kahler. From family man to death row in just 1 year. It's crazy how fast things can fall apart, you know? One minute you're living the American dream, the next you're facing execution. This case, it's not just about one family. It's a wake-up call for all of us. Shows you how sometimes the most dangerous threats aren't strangers lurking in the shadows. They're right there at home, sitting across the dinner table. Makes you wonder how many other families out there are walking that same thin line between love and tragedy. How many kids like Sean are struggling to make sense of their world after it's been torn apart? These family annihilation cases, they don't just end with the verdict, the survivors, the community. They're dealing with the fallout for years. It's a reminder that we gotta pay attention, you know? Keep an eye out for those warning signs before it's too late.